Hey everyone, it's Scott Russroltz here for the June 14th edition of the Listen and Learn podcast. As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you do enjoy the podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be alerted every time we release a podcast, and share with your friends and family who you think may enjoy it as well. So just a little bit of a briefer edition than usual tonight. I want to focus on two stories. The first, obviously, the biggest story of the day, the terrible shooting of Steve Scalise, the majority whip in the House. Two staffers and two members of the Capitol Police by a deranged maniac in Alexandria, Virginia. You know, immediately you see people on both sides of the aisle politicizing this to some degree, which I don't think makes sense. There will certainly be study into the shooter's motive, which is justified. We do know that the shooter asked ahead of time whether or not there were Republicans or Democrats on the field prior to begin shooting, so there could be some motivation there. Nonetheless, I think people who are connecting the fact, that he worked for the Bernie Sanders campaign as a volunteer and somehow trying to tie that to Sanders is completely unfair. I think too often you see both when there's an attack like this, people try to pin the blame on the larger political movement that someone belongs to, and that's simply unfair and is often a way to silence speech. We weaponize people's actions by saying, well, because you said X and this person agreed with you and this person acted violently, you can't say X anymore. Now, when you're speaking and inciting violence directly, that's unacceptable in the political arena. But if you're having a strong political argument like Bernie Sanders during the campaign did, it's unfair, completely unfair to tie him to the deranged actions of someone who supports him. Fact is, in a country of hundreds of millions of people, there's going to be deranged folks in every political party. Nonetheless, I think this perhaps should be a reminder to us that we should always do our best to try and elevate our discourse, recognize that our political opponents are human beings with families and friends. And too often that's missed. And I think the other big story out of this was, unsurprisingly, how heroically Capitol Police acted, shooting back even after they were shot. And without them, probably would have had more than Steve Scalise being the only member of Congress being shot. And you may have had several members of Congress killed today, and the story would have been much worse. So, once again, the bravery of law enforcement on full display. But it's a moment that should transcend party politics, but too often doesn't. I'm sure the gun control debate will heat up off of this. Again, the facts are that this man, we're not going to use his name, had a legally purchased firearm in the state of Illinois, which has some of the tougher gun laws in the country. You are seeing stories on allegations that he hit his wife, allegations that he ran over his neighbor's dog. So he seems like a deranged individual. The problem is, owning guns are rights. And the only way you can remove a right, arguably, is if someone would be convicted of a crime. But in this country, you are always innocent to be proven guilty. So while he had been accused in the public square of these various things, he'd never actually been charged with crimes, from our current understanding. So when you do a background check, the fact is, he's been charged with nothing. And if you've been charged with nothing, you don't lose any of your constitutional rights. So this, again, is just the difficult part. And I think Mo Brooks, representative, said it quite well, that rights have both positives and negative aspects. We all support freedom of speech, but that also means that the Ku Klux Klan is able to march down Broadway with hateful signs, and that is constitutionally protected speech. Similarly here, owning a gun is a constitutionally protected right. As a consequence, the bar for removing that right from someone is justifiably quite high to avoid unfairly taking it away. And you can't simply take that right away because someone's been accused of a crime. You would need to show that they've been convicted of a crime. Otherwise, you get people being falsely charged to keep them from exercising constitutional rights. So I think that's some important context for the debate ahead. But really just a sad day, and hopefully an isolated act of violence. The other story this evening, we're just going to touch it briefly, are these leaks out of the Mueller probe. President Trump may be also a subject of, they're investigating whether or not he obstructed justice. Couple of thoughts on this is, one, it's again remarkable how even though you separate out the investigation, any anti-Trump story immediately leaks to the press. And that does make you have to wonder whether there are some in the intelligence community that simply are out to get the president. Don't like the fact that he's our president and are trying to damage him and his agenda at every turn possible. And when you have a special investigation going on, that type of behavior should not and cannot happen. And it's unfair to have half-truths or half-facts come out. The other is, given some of the revelations, it's unsurprising that Mueller did not feel a need to look into this. I do think it's surprising that he let Comey say so much publicly if he was looking into the investigation. That strikes me as just surprising. But from everything we know, is the president never ordered an end to any investigation. All you have is a he said, he said. The president has a legal right to fire any FBI director for any reason. And the key thing is, even Comey concedes that Trump told him that it'd be good to know any satellites who were involved with colluding with Russia, which suggests he was intent on this investigation being wrapped up and finding anyone guilty. So in the broader picture, it's really hard to see any obstruction of justice. My strong expectation is that this investigation is something Mueller feels an obligation to do, but in part driven by the fact that Comey was allowed to testify publicly, one that he sees highly unlikely to result in any kind of guilty assertion and any kind of indictment, and there's simply not evidence here to support it. But it is again disturbing to see how half-truths are being leaked by our intelligence community in order to damage the president. So that's really all for tonight. Thank you as always for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.